It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, October 12th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is bringing you an in depth look at our opening night opponent, the New Jersey Devils.
Very in depth.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, October 12th. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow us on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. That's where you'll find the latest on our episodes and Flyers news. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. On today's show, we're going to get caught up on the latest with the opening day roster and then dive into our last preseason crossover from the Metro Division with Trey Matthews of Locked On Devils. Locked On Flyers is free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you are listening. So subscribe. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we are over on YouTube, so subscribe there as well. Russ, we have a roster, I think.
Sort of.
As we talked about yesterday, they had some paper moves to deal with the cap and such. And I think, the biggest surprise for us and the only thing that we maybe got wrong is that they decided to keep Ronnie Attard and Egor Zamula and not just one of them on the roster for now. Now, obviously that could change before Thursday, but for now they're still there. What do you make of that?
I make of it that there's some sort of salary balancing. You have to have a certain, before LTIR kicks in, you have to go straight up to the cap before you can get any relief. And so maybe one of them represents that based on what they're making. So I think one will go back and one will be in the press box like we thought, and it's just a matter of who. I would vote for Zamula to stay and Attard to go back for now, and Sealer to be in the press box. But that's not going to all happen. I know that.
Yeah, I would hope that they would give each of Attard and Zamula a game for the first two games of the season, put Sealer in the press box, and then kind of go from there. But I don't know that that's going to happen. We'll get more clues as we have more practices leading up to Thursday night. The other question that we talked about yesterday is where Cam Atkinson will fit in to the lineup and who might have to come out for that to happen if he is indeed ready, as they say he is.
Right. I guess we're going to know the morning of. We're really not going to know if he's ready until he's doing in that morning skate saying thumbs up, I'm in there. We're just not going to know.
Yeah. So many questions, but I do appreciate Torts is kind of doing the rounds and being very blunt about things. So I appreciate
I think he's frustrated. I think when he talks like this, even though he's being calm and he's trying to do the right thing, he's also a little frustrated at this cap stuff. I'm almost certain of it.
Yeah, it really feels like he is. In terms of injury status, as of now, Couturier is on injured reserve. Ryan Ellis will be on long-term injured reserve as soon as the season starts. And then Bobby Brink and Patrick Brown. And for now, Felix Sandstrom are on the injured non-roster list. So that is their current status, and that affects how much of a cap hit there is. And all of that will get sorted over the next couple of days. But
so all we know for certain is Sam Ersson is the backup goalie. We know that he won that battle.
He did, presuming that Felix Sandstrom would take that spot back if he were healthy.
Right.
All right. Well, the Flyers are facing the New Jersey Devils on opening night on Thursday, and we decided to do our final Metro Locked On NHL crossover.
Good timing.
Yeah, really good timing with Trey Matthews of Locked On Devils to get everything you need to know about the Devils going into Thursday night's game. And here you go. Here's that conversation with Trey. All right, so we are finishing up our preseason series of check-ins with our Metro Division rivals, and we thought the very last one should be the team that we are facing opening night, and that is the New Jersey Devils. So we are thrilled to welcome from Locked On Devils, Trey Matthews. How's it going, Trey?
Pretty good. I mean, it's hard to believe that the season is just right around the corner, and I'm really excited.
So
We are too. And I think, the Devils are really working hard to move up the ranks in the Metro Division. How did you feel about the Devils offseason, and what do you think the biggest impact move that they made was?
Well, before we talk about the biggest impact, I think both of you can relate to my pain of what happened with Johnny Gaudreau. I know yours was more of a tight money situation. So, with all due respect, you guys, the Flyers organization shot themselves in the foot because Johnny Gaudreau pretty much, like, if it wasn't Philadelphia, I genuinely believe he would have went to New Jersey. But Columbus Blue Jackets, they were the mystery team that everyone was talking about. I thought it was the Seattle Kraken. That's what I was hearing. And then when he made that announcement, it was hard. It was definitely very hard because the New Jersey Devils, we were in the running for Alex DeBrincat. We were in the running for Kevin Fiala. Matthew Tkachuk could have been a genuine possibility during draft day because I think there was a deal in the works on the night of the draft that involved the second overall pick. I don't know how true or not those rumors were, but that's basically what I heard. And then obviously with Johnny Gaudreau, that was just like a punch in the gut. But the Devils rebounded pretty nicely. So we got our second option, which was Ondrej Palat. Yes, we overpaid him a little bit, but you kind of have to because Ondrej Palat knew that look, it's either me or you're going to strike out with another big name player. So either give me what I want or we'll walk somewhere else. And then your plan B is always better than plan X, Y, and Z. So getting Ondrej Palat will definitely help the New Jersey Devils because they need more veteran help. And then we got Vitek Vanecek to help out with Mackenzie Blackwood. Then on the defensive side of things, we got John Marino from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Gave up on Ty Smith pretty early, but I felt like it was a necessary move. And then got Brendan Smith. And overall, the Devils have had a pretty solid offseason.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was covering the Cup, I wrote about Ondrej Palat and how he was going free agent, and I got barraged with "He's not leaving. He's not." I was like, "Yeah, he's leaving," and so that was interesting. I thought that was a good signing by the Devils. The first thing I want to ask you about is your feeling on Simon Nemec because Lindy's not the greatest with young players, especially young defensemen, and he put out the word like a week or so ago that Nemec wasn't doing super fantastic, but there were things to work on, and he doesn't want to mess up a kid's development. And so like when I saw that, it made me wonder where is he going to play this year? So where do you think he's going to play this year?
Okay, so first and foremost, I've mispronounced his name too. It's Shimon Nemec. Like
Shimon. Now it's
Shimon
that.
Nemec.
It wasn't even at the draft. That's interesting.
I know. That's why every Devils personality, including myself, were saying Simon Nemec because that's how it was announced at the draft.
Correct.
But in a video with the Devils media, he said it's Shimon Nemec.
Okay, got it.
Good to know.
So yeah, I mean it's hockey. Everyone has a confusing name. So so Shimon Nemec. We drafted what we needed, which was we needed another defenseman to develop alongside with Luke Hughes. And personally, I made the prediction saying that maybe it's best if he starts out in Utica, but the Devils just, announced their roster just shortly before we started recording. And he made the team, but the thing is he's not going to appear in many games. It's just more of like it's now or never for Shimon Nemec because if he starts out in Utica, hypothetically, he would have stayed there. So it's just mainly to get his feet wet. So
they're going to give him a few games and then
give him a few games, see how he adjusts to it. But the plan is to, have him play in mostly Utica, wait till next season when Luke Hughes joins the board. So that way you have a right-handed defenseman and you have a left-handed defenseman that you can work with. Shimon Nemeth, I expect him to be the anchor on the defensive side of things, and then Luke Hughes is going to be the offensive weapon for the defense on that hypothetical line pairing, because that's what people are saying that it's going to be. But yeah, the thing with Shimon Nemeth is that he actually improved on his offense during the course of the playoffs overseas. So, he was actually, that was one of the things that I talked about when he was drafted, which was it'd be nice if he just generates a little bit more offense. But he showed that during the course of the playoffs, and he can only go up from there. He's an athlete. Honestly, I didn't think he would hypothetically be in the running to, make the opening night roster. But lo and behold, he did well during the prospects tournament. I think that's what really put him on the map again, because prior to the prospects tournament, I don't think anyone was really projecting for him to make, the opening night roster, because you got Dougie Hamilton, you got Ryan Graves, you got Jonas Siegenthaler, who was arguably our best defenseman last year, Damon Severson. Obviously, you picked up Brendan Smith and John Marino. So pretty much the six defensemen are selected, and you can take an extra. But since, Nico Hischier is on the injury list along with Tice Thompson, and then Jonathan Bernier is on the long-term injury list, I guess it was, it was just the right opportunity to bring him onto the NHL roster, get him a few games, and then, see where we go from there. But Shimon Nemeth, I'm expecting big things from him, not this year, but next year. And I expect for him to light it up in Utica.
One thing I could add before Rach goes is that Luke Hughes is going to turn pro the minute Michigan season ends. So you might still see them together towards the end of the NHL season. It's a possibility.
It is possible. And, I admire Luke Hughes for taking his time, because theoretically what he was doing during the course of the summer at the World Juniors, he could have honestly just said, you know what, I don't know the process for this, but he could have just said, you know what, I'm not going to go to the University of Michigan. I'm going to go to New Jersey, report there, try to make the team out of training camp, whatever the case might be. But, I admire the fact that he wants to do one more year.
Could have done that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Do one more year at U of M, develop there. He's obviously going to be one of the focal points. He's one of their captains. So Luke Hughes is definitely going to be something special. And just the tandem of Jack Hughes at forward and then Luke Hughes on the defensive side of things, I'm really excited. And if we get Quinn Hughes at some point, I know the chances are very slim, but if we can get all three Hughes brothers, I think everyone's going to be buying a ticket to the Rock to see that kind of thing.
All right, we'll have more with Trey coming up next, but first we're going to hear about SimpliSafe.
The numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen SimpliSafe home security to protect their home. You don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. At SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters, and that's why I use SimpliSafe in my own home. They protect you with the latest security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who will always have your back. SimpliSafe, their advanced technology is what I love the most. I can control the system from my phone with the app and even watch an HD live stream from the security cameras or monitor the wide variety of high-tech sensors in every room. There are even hazard sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplisafe.com/lockedonnhl. Save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplisafe.com/lockedonnhl to learn more. There's no safe like SimpliSafe.
I'm curious what you think about Jesper Bratt going into this season. Of course, he had a really monster season last year for himself. Do you think he can match or even top last year's numbers?
Oh, yeah. Jesper Bratt was one of the more underrated players in the entire NHL. And I think my buddy, the Brad Pack, I don't know if you've seen his Twitter account. It's basically, he's like Jesper Bratt's biggest fan. And he's like a big personality on Twitter. He says Jesper Bratt is the best NHL player it's Jesper Bratt is the best player in the NHL. So, obviously it's a little bit of a joke.
I don't know about that. But
in all seriousness, Jesper Bratt is one of the more underrated players in the NHL. And I think he can definitely get to Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier's level of all-star status this year, because he tied with Jack Hughes for most goals on the team. He led the Devils in assists and points. And I was talking to JD Hernandez of Locked On Ducks about this recently. You could have made the argument that maybe if you were selecting MVP or of the team or in that nature, you could select Jesper Bratt. And I think a lot of people did. Personally, I would have went with Jack Hughes just because without him, the engine doesn't run. But Jesper Bratt is putting up pretty decent numbers with the New Jersey Devils, and yet no one outside the Metro was really talking about it. So I think this is the time for Jesper Bratt to take his game just a couple steps higher. And I made a controversial episode. I said, despite him having a very good year, I think this is going to be, once he's named an all-star, once he gets that recognition, that's it. That's what I'm going to consider his breakout year. Because like I just said moments ago, I want him to reach the status of Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier in terms of all-star status, because I call those three our baby big three. And I know we had some troubles extending him during the course of the offseason, signed a 1-year extension, but he said that he left the negotiating to his agent, but he is fully committed to New Jersey. Not trying to get, my hopes up for right now, just trying to, I'll wait until we cross that bridge, because a lot can happen in a year span. But, he said during the course of the summer, he said recently that he wants to stay with New Jersey long-term. And I think the New Jersey Devils found a diamond in the rough with Mr. Jesper Bratt. And I expect for him to just go full force and just, get his name out there a little bit more. And he's gonna have a big year this year. I think he's going to top it.
So Dawson Mercer kind of got thrown into the mix last year, did really well. He was a good scorer in juniors. I had him pretty highly ranked. This year will be an interesting one because there'll be a lot more expected. He definitely could score more goals, but there'll be more pressure. I think there's going to be more pressure on the Devils team in general, because it's kind of like the feeling is out there. It's like, you guys need to make the playoffs soon, because this Metro division, you might have an opportunity this year, and you've made all these moves. So I'm kind of wondering how you feel he's going to do this year with added pressure.
Yep, added pressure, and he might not be paired alongside with Jack Hughes come opening night, because the thing is, we call this the H2O line, and it's Ondrej Palat, Alexander Holtz, and Jack Hughes. So, and they actually did really well during the inter squad, and it seems like this is a good opportunity for Alexander Holtz to actually, do what he was able to do in Utica last year, and maybe, put up some good numbers. Because the thing with that line combination, and I'll talk about Dawson Mercer momentarily, is that Ondrej Palat, you get the person who's been around the block before, someone who could potentially have a career year, because he's going to be more of a focal point. Can't you guys vouch for the fact that if you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning's championship runs, who was one of the more underrated players? Ondrej Palat. Mm-hmm. And who's the leader for the Devils now? It's Ondrej Palat now. No disrespect to our captain Nico Hischier, but he's a grizzled veteran. And now Jack Hughes, franchise player, and now Alexander Holtz going to be given a bigger opportunity to try to score a little bit more, play make a little bit more.
Yeah, he's a sniper. He is.
Right. And so when Lindy Ruff saw that during practice and training camp, it really puts players like Yegor Sharangovich and Dawson Mercer's production into question, just because it's like they're not going to be paired with Jack Hughes. So, going into last year, the question I have was, like, if Jack Hughes is theoretically not there, which he wasn't when he got hurt second game of the year, can Yegor Sharangovich and at the time Yanni Kuokkanen be able to repeat that same production that they were able to do towards the end of the previous season, back during the 56-game 2021 season? And the answer was no. They both struggled mightily when Jack Hughes went down with his shoulder injury and got to a point where both of them were healthy scratches. So for Dawson Mercer, the one thing I can't question is that guy is a workhorse. He played in all games for New Jersey Devils, the only player to do so. Somehow he avoided early on in the year the COVID procedures. He never got hurt, which was a big issue for the Devils. But I just say, if Dawson Mercer can avoid the sophomore year slump, which a lot of young guys tend to hit, I think he'll be just fine. He showed me actually glimpses of, being able to hold down the fort just fine during the course of preseason. Same with Yegor Sharangovich. So I get that's preseason. I don't want to overreact to anything, but, like you said, Dawson Mercer, while he's not going to be with someone like Jack Hughes, I think he could still definitely put up some solid production for New Jersey Devils. And same with Yegor Sharangovich, who could also have a breakout year, third year in the league.
So what do you think was like the final straw that made them give up on Pavel Zacha? And what do you think about the return in Erik Haula and how is he going to fit into the lineup?
What was the final straw? Let's see. We could go back to his draft when he was drafted with Connor McDavid, Mitchell Marner, all those guys, Jack Eichel.
Yeah.
Noah Hannafin. We could go back to that draft class in which we see all those players, putting up some big numbers. Jack Eichel, not so much, but, that's a different discussion.
Ivan Provorov was taken right after him.
And we could look at that draft class, and then it's just like, where's Pavel Zacha been? It's just, the thing is just that I think, and I've talked to some Devils news reporters. I talked to someone who's appeared on my show before. Her name is Christy Flannery. She covers the Devils for the Hockey Writers. She and I both agreed, which was Pavel Zacha just seemed to hit a wall. He was, uninspired. It just didn't seem like we were going to get more potential out of him after the 2021 season, in which he was able to put up, 30-something points for Devils. He was tied on the team for most points that year. But unfortunately, there were like 90 or so players ahead of him in that department in the entire NHL. So, yes, he was decent for Devils standards, but not NHL, big number standards, if that makes sense. But the final straw was just like during the course of last year, it's just like he's just not inspired. It just doesn't look like he's going to get anything out of this organization, just because it seemed like he took a couple steps back. So at that point, it's just like, we need to get rid of him while we still can. And now with Erik Haula, breath of fresh air, similar to Ondrej Palat, a veteran who's been around the block before. He's been in the league for a while. He was actually showing, very good flashes during the course of preseason alongside with Miles Wood, the speed, the determination. And I think we could get that out of Erik Haula. Now, it's funny, Mark Recchi, who was recently fired by the New Jersey Devils during the course of the offseason, he said that Pavel Zacha is better than Erik Haula. Now, here's the thing. Pavel Zacha has potential to be better than Erik Haula. So if Pavel Zacha has like a career year with the Boston Bruins, I'll be bitter about it. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised, just because it's just like, maybe a change of scenery is what he really needed. So Pavel Zacha, I'll be 100% realistic with myself. Pavel Zacha could potentially still be better than Erik Haula. Potential to do so. But at this current state, if we're comparing the stats, if we're comparing the impact, Erik Haula wins that debate 100% for right now. So for what the Devils need right now temporarily, I like Erik Haula, and I'm excited to see what he does. Like I said, Christy Flannery, she was big on Erik Haula being traded over during the course of the offseason. So, Pavel Zacha is just like, great guy. I wish him the best in Boston, but it was time for him to move on, because if we're being honest, what were we gonna get out of him? I don't think anything.
So we switched to the problem that the Devils have had the last few years in goaltending, and it all started with when they got Corey Crawford, and that didn't quite work out, and then last year it was the heel for your current goalie, and so you kind of wonder with Blackwood with the heel, is that fully healed? Is he, no pun intended, is he really going to be the number one? Vanecek's always been a number two. And so now I kind of wonder, this is a big year for Blackwood, because I know he annoyed the organization last year with not getting inoculated, not really coming through, kind of putting them in a tough spot. They were worried about travel because of Canada, all that stuff. It was a focal point. Now this year they don't have that, but what's the goaltending really going to look like?
Okay, so for Mackenzie Blackwood, yes, you're right. There were some problems because he didn't want to get. I'm not sure if he didn't want to get vaccinated or boosted, because the problem was like he dealt with COVID during the course of the 2021 season. He said he didn't want it back in his body again. He was scared, and I don't know what convinced him to get it, but he ultimately did. And,
I think it was his mom, because his mom's a nurse.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there we go. So he finally did get it, and that did, hurt some bridges a little bit. But, during the course of the season, the Devils have failed them. Like, in my eyes, the Devils organization should be the ones to be blamed for Mackenzie Blackwood, because they're doing the same thing to him as they did with Corey Schneider, which is you're relying on him too much. He's prone to injury. You don't have him a suitable backup. So he basically has to play Superman and try to play every single game. At one point, he was playing 9 or so straight games. And I'm just like, give this man a break. I don't care if we win. If he goes down, our season is done, kind of thing. Well, it was already done, but, we'll be well done, like well done kind of thing. So, when Mackenzie Blackwood, it's just like there was a falling out. At one point, he did switch agents during the middle of the year, which is never a good sign. That usually means like, something big might be originating. But luckily, those discussions have died out a little bit. I think the Devils, have a plan with them. They got Vitek Vanecek during the draft, and I said that Vitek Vanecek was a legitimate option for the Devils to pick up during the course of the offseason. I said it could be him, it could be Darcy Kemper, Braden Holtby. If I had to pick the more realistic outcome, I said Vitek Vanecek, and it came true. So Vitek Vanecek, he's a solid player, doesn't do well during the course of the playoffs, but we're not at that stage yet. Both of them have really done well during the course of preseason. So I try not to overreact to preseason, but you don't want to, I guess, underreact either. So you don't want to overstate, but you don't want to understate either. So both of them actually played pretty well in between the pipes for the Devils. And I think the goaltending has definitely gotten better. And another thing you need to consider is that Jonathan Bernier, he's not going to hang up the skates. He is projected, according to a Devils insider, that he is going to come back at around Thanksgiving time. American Thanksgiving. I know today is Canadian Thanksgiving.
I'm going to just say I remain skeptical on that.
Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it.
Because of the injury.
I know. Okay. You'll believe it when you see it. But here's the thing. He was participating in Devils inter-squad scrimmages. So,
sure, but, playing, 2-3 games in a row or playing 3 times a week.
I know there's a Boston Bruins goalie story. I get it. I talked about it on my show. I get the story of the Boston Bruins situation with Rask, but at the same time, it's just like, yes, I'll believe it when I see it. I would love to have him back. I'm really hoping this does work. But the thing is, Jonathan Bernier, he'll be a third string goalie. He won't play every game.
Right.
Like he'll play like once every 10 or so games, if we're being realistic here. And, hopefully by then, Blackwood and Vanecek have a real chemistry together. But we need Jonathan Bernier back, actually, because he provides that experience. He can act as a mentor. He's pretty solid. He's won a Stanley Cup championship. Who he got it against is irrelevant, but still,
Cup is a cup.
Yeah, cup is a cup. So, ultimately, the goaltending has gotten better. I think the, amends have been made between Blackwood and the organization because, yes, Blackwood does need to play better, but the Devils organization has not put him into a situation to, be himself or, actually be given a chance to succeed. So it works on both ends in my eyes. And then Vitek Vanecek, while not the most experienced goalie, he did pretty solid on a playoff caliber team like the Washington Capitals.
I don't know, man. Every time I think the Devils have it together, goaltending wise, something happens. So I honestly, I love goaltenders. So I wish nothing but good health on them because it's a difficult position and I get it. But I want to switch to kind of where the Devils sit overall right now. And I think there's been a couple of outliers that I've seen, but for the most part, people seem to be predicting that the Devils will not make the playoffs, that will maybe end up in the 5th or 6th position in the division. What's your take on that?
It's an interesting thing to be in because I think I saw a chart by Jay Fresh saying that the Devils could get 90 or so points, but they're still going to miss the playoffs. Quite honestly, if they do get 90 points, that's actually a pretty good improvement, and that's just bad luck. But
yeah, I would say, look, I like Jay Fresh. I work with him at another location, another company. It's tough if you get 90 points and you say they're not going to make it. I tend to think that that's really hard to do.
Yeah. So like, I'm not trying, like I said, I'm not trying to base it off of one source. I was just giving an example.
No. I know. And I'm saying I'm with you. I think while I think they're a bubble team for the playoffs, I think, hey, if you think they're going to get 90, chances are they're probably going to get 92 and make it if they're that close. They're going to be that good. I mean, that's,
Yeah. The situation is simply this. My two locks to make the playoffs are the Carolina Hurricanes. Obviously, I expect for them to make the playoffs and actually have a legitimate deep playoff run.
Mm-hmm.
And then the New York Rangers. But, Shesterkin, it depends on like if he's able to repeat what he did last year. Even if he only retains like 75% of it, that's still going to be good enough for the Rangers to make the playoffs. So I think the Hurricanes and then the Rangers are my two locks. And then I think JD Young of Locked On Sharks said, like, when he was doing his mock standings, he said he was struggling between, third and second to last in the Metro, because it's like, what's going to happen to the Penguins? What's going to happen to the Islanders? What's going to happen to the Capitals? Because they are one of the oldest teams in the NHL. So they cannot keep this up forever. Like, I admire the Penguins for keeping Malkin, Letang, and Crosby together. But you have, and they've won 3 cups, I believe, together. That's great and all, but you're doing a slow death march because you're getting older. Islanders didn't have a successful offseason. Capitals, Ovechkin, I tried never to doubt one of the greatest to ever play, but Father Time is undefeated for a reason. So you got 3 of the oldest teams in the NHL. You got you guys with I mean this respectfully, but I'm not really,
No.
I'm not concerned about the Flyers.
We cannot be insulted by anything.
Yeah, it's impossible to insult us.
I mean this respectfully. Flyers, I'm not even thinking about that. But
they're a non-issue.
So it's just like, it really depends on like what happens with the older teams, like who's going to take a few steps backwards. That's my thing. So I think the Devils can certainly get a wild card, but the Metro is just so interesting because, like I said, we got the Rangers and the Hurricanes. Okay, those are my 2 locks. But it's just like what happens between third and second to last, because I project you guys are going to finish, last in Metro.
Yeah, so, I mean, I could give you the argument is that if Boston doesn't make it and all of a sudden the Atlantic isn't as strong, like even Florida loses more games, so they don't have 122 points, they get like 110 or less, then all of a sudden maybe the Metro does get more points. And if, let's say, Washington and the Islanders don't make it, but Columbus, Pittsburgh, Ranger, you could have 5 and maybe the Devils do get in as that extra wild card. That may be the way. I mean, if they did that, that might be the way with 92 points if everybody's points go down a bit and not because even the Rangers at 110, I'm not sure they're hitting that this year.
Yeah, and the thing about the Columbus Blue Jackets, I can't believe I forgot to mention them. They're one of the, yes, they got Johnny Gaudreau. We talked about this, but they're still the youngest team in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
So Johnny Gaudreau, I expect for him to do really well. And I expect the Columbus Blue Jackets to get off to a decent start. But come January or February, when midseason hits, they are going to hit a wall and they're going to crash and burn. And I'm not being salty. I'm speaking of based off of experience of the Devils being one of the younger teams in the NHL the past few years. Like, get off to a good start, but then, once that wall hits for your young guys, crash and burn. So I think the Devils will finish with a better record than the Flyers and the Blue Jackets.
Mm-hmm. Well, Blue Jackets will be tough, but it could happen.
It'll be tough. And like I said, they got Johnny Gaudreau. That's great and all, but they're still the youngest team in the NHL. So, it's just like Islanders, Capitals, and Penguins are it's just an interesting toss-up because they're one of the older teams in the NHL. They're not what they once used to be, but still you don't want to underestimate people who have been at this for a good while. But Father Time in sports is undefeated for a reason.
Yeah, I love some of those predictions. I want to check back in with you mid-season to see where your predictions are so far. Trey, this has been amazing. Such a great source of information on the Devils this year, our first opponent for the Flyers. Where can people find you out there?
They can find me at TreyMatt4, TreyMatt, and the number 4, and the show's Twitter page at Locked On Devils. And you can find Locked On Devils wherever you get your podcast from, and also on YouTube.
All right. Once again, thanks to Trey Matthews of Locked On Devils. Always a good conversation with Trey. He is super knowledgeable about that team, and I think he sees the glass half full with the Devils all the time, and I was inspired by that. And so we're gonna do a glass half full episode tomorrow, leading up to opening night. We're gonna say a few things each that we are really excited about or think are promising going into the season on the eve of opening night. We'll wrap things up today. Our Flyers fun thing. It appears the Fueled by Philly hashtag is now live on Twitter with the little Flyers logo. We knew that was coming, but now we see it officially in the socials. So that's always fun to see what they're going to come up with and make us type in all of our tweets
But
throughout the season.
You know that if they're not doing well, there's going to be hashtags with like out of gas, and there's always that possibility.
Listen, I think that the problem with the Flyers one has been it's long. I think it would be better if it was shorter because it takes up characters, but that's my only complaint. I think whatever they want to do is fine otherwise. All right. We always want to hear from you for our mailbag segments, which we will also have on tomorrow's show. So send us in your questions via Twitter at LockedOnFlyers, or you can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
You made us your first listen today. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Steel Roden and Flip Livingstone bring you the fantasy edge and keep you ahead of the competition with daily updates of news, analysis, and advice Monday through Friday. It's available on YouTube, Odyssey, wherever you get your podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.